Welcome back. Okay, let's talk about the world in 2026. Things are, well, they're shifting, and in some pretty dramatic ways. And to really get a grip on what's at stake, we're going to start with a potential flashpoint, a real powder keg. So what actually happens when a superpower decides to attack an oil-rich nation? What's the fallout? But the bigger question here is, what does a scenario like this, even a hypothetical one, tell us about the new rules of the game, the new rules of global power? Okay, so picture this for 2026. U.S. forces roll into Venezuela. They take control of the country's assets, they capture President Maduro. But here's the thing, this isn't really about Venezuela. Not just about Venezuela, anyway. It's a symptom of something much, much bigger happening on the world stage. So you have to ask yourself, how on earth did we get to a point where something like this is even on the table? Well, the answer starts with what we're calling the Great Power Shuffle. It's basically the end of the old way of doing things. All those alliances, the systems that kept a certain kind of peace for decades, they're starting to crack, they're starting to break down. And look, you don't have to take my word for it. This quote from Germany's leader, Friedrich Merz, says it all. He's talking about Pax Americana. That's just a fancy term for that long period of relative peace that was kind of guaranteed by American power. He says, for Europe, it's over. It's gone. Now, when a key U.S. ally says that out loud, that's a huge deal. It signals this massive power vacuum opening up. And in geopolitics, a vacuum never stays empty for long. So what does this new world look like? Well, we're basically seeing a total switch. The old order was all about globalization and alliances led by the U.S. The new order? It's a free-for-all. It's great power competition. It's every nation for itself, prioritizing what they call economic security. And the main event, the headline act in this new arena, is the massive rivalry between the U.S. and China. And here's a crucial point. This new competition isn't being fought with just tanks and planes. No, the primary battlefield has shifted. It's now the global economy. And the weapons of choice? Things like trade deals, tech patents, and of course, tariffs. And governments around the world have a new playbook for this economic warfare. It's pretty straightforward, really. Step 1, you pick a strategic sector. Think semiconductors or EVs. Step 2, you deploy your tools. Tariffs, subsidies, you name it. But here's the twist. This isn't just about getting an economic edge anymore. This is now about national security. The whole point is to reshape global supply chains and lock down those critical resources for yourself. And if you want a perfect example of this in action, just look at how President Trump approached China. He wasn't looking for a friendly compromise. The strategy was to layer on intense pressure, tariffs, sanctions, the works, to force a deal. It's all about leverage now. It's transactional. So, okay, what does this actually look like in the real world? Let's take Germany. For decades, they were the kings of the auto industry, right? Unbeatable. Well, now, that mighty industry is being hollowed out. Why? Because they're struggling to keep up with Chinese EV makers, who are absolutely thriving in this new world of state-backed competition. This is what the new economic battlefield looks like up close. And as you'd expect, this economic fight isn't staying contained. It's spilling over. It's turning into a real physical scramble for resources and for strategic territory all across the globe. And suddenly you see all these hotspots on high alert. And make no mistake, these aren't just random isolated conflicts. They are direct consequences of this bigger power struggle. When China runs military drills around Taiwan, that's not practice, that's a message. When ships clash in the South China Sea, that risks pulling the U.S. into a conflict because of defense treaties. And when you hear reports of North Korean troops getting battle experience in Europe, that tells you that new and, frankly, dangerous alliances are being forged. So what's at the heart of all this scrambling? A lot of it comes down to something called critical minerals. I'm talking about things like rare earths. This is the stuff that makes our modern worlds go round. It's in your phone, it's in EV batteries, it's in advanced defense systems. And as we've seen with China's export controls, if you control these minerals, you have a weapon. You can turn a simple supply chain into a geopolitical battleground. And that right there brings us all the way back to where we started, back to Venezuela. Now you see why it's such a critical piece on this new global chessboard. It's not just that they have oil. It's that they have the largest proven crude oil reserves on the entire planet. Look at this chart. That's more than Saudi Arabia. In a world that is desperate for resources, that makes Venezuela the ultimate prize. Okay, so at this point, you're probably thinking, this is all fascinating, big picture stuff, but what does it have to do with me? Well, the answer is a lot. These global power plays have a direct line to your wallet, your investments, and pretty much the price of everything you buy. It all comes down to some pretty basic market psychology. When there's a big global shock, like the scenario we talked about, investors panic. It's human nature. They pull their money out of things they suddenly see as risky, like the stock market, and they run for cover in traditional safe havens.
And the reaction is almost always the same. And it's fast. You'll see crude oil and gold prices gap up. They'll spike because people are bracing for shortages and looking for something stable to hold. And the stock market, it gaps down. It falls hard.
And in any crisis like this, you're going to have clear winners and losers in the market. The winners? Defense contractors, for obvious reasons, and the big oil companies. Their stocks tend to go up. And the losers? Think about airlines and transportation companies. Their businesses rely on global stability and cheap fuel, so they get hit hard. But you know who gets hit the hardest? The biggest losers are almost always the emerging markets. Why? Because foreign investment just vanishes, practically overnight. Their currencies get hammered, and if they're a country that has to import oil, well, that's a devastating double shock. The price of energy goes through the roof at the exact same moment their ability to pay for it collapses. So this all leaves us with a pretty sobering final question, doesn't it? We're living in a world now where economic policy is security policy, where every single supply chain is a potential front line. So in this new global game, are we all just unwilling players now? Whether we like it or not, the game has fundamentally changed, and we're all on the board.